All right, hopefully you can hear me. It's a tad breezy out here today. We had some humongous storms roll through last night. But today, so far, it is gorgeous. It's not raining. It's actually mostly sunny. It's warm. And I am taking this opportunity to get some more outdoor work done. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. I was praying last night about this. I was like, Lord, please, please don't let this rain all day tomorrow. I've got to get some work done. Well, we got dumped on with rain during the night, but at least this morning we're able to get some stuff done. Now, I started pulling the thistles out of the pasture, and then Mr. Smith just like took over the tool. So rather than just standing there watching him and pointing at the thistles that he can see perfectly fine himself, I'm gonna go work in the garden. Now, I still do not have access to the compost delivery because we're still so dadgum wet, and so is the compost people. So it's just going to be a plan B situation. I'm going to do what I can with what I have. So I actually just got done taking a shower. It is evening. So it has been a very busy couple of days. Yesterday we started out there in the pasture pulling all of the bull thistle. Well, not all of it. We've still got another morning of it to take place, but we got a huge chunk of it done. While Mr. Smith was doing that, because he kind of took it over from me, I headed into the no-till garden, which is what I'm going to start referring that garden as, because that's essentially what it's becoming. I headed out there and I began working on the beds. I was aerating it with a garden fork. I don't have a broad fork yet. I do need to invest in one of these days, especially now that that is going to become a no-till garden. So I was aerating the soil and just kind of prepping and going through, pulling any weeds that had grown over winter and just kind of cleaning it up. And then when Mr. Smith got done out in the pasture, he got the push mower out of the barn, got it going, and he headed in there and mowed in between the garden beds. So it is starting to come together out there. And you know, I've been so stressed that I haven't been able to get the compost yet, but I got to thinking, wait a minute, last year didn't I plant in April? So I looked at the planting calendar, and sure enough, my last frost date, it's safe to plant everything date, isn't until April 22nd. So here I've been fooling myself because the weather's been so warm. It has been in the 80s the past couple of days, which made it feel like it was further along than it was. So I'm not going to stress too much. There's still time to get the compost and all of that delivered. I still don't know that I'll get any more raised beds built, and if I don't this spring, that's okay. I'm not going to stress about it. But yes, so the work has begun on the garden. Like I said, I was weeding and aerating the soil in the no-till garden. And then today, once again, it was get right at it bright and early, but this time we started working out front in the raised bed garden. And it began with me going out there planting some bulbs. I have a low, skinny raised bed that's out there, and last year it was full of flowers, and this year is going to be flowers as well, but this time I planted some bulbs out there. Then again, I was pulling weeds that had grown and just cleaning out the area. We pulled all of the old like duck shelters and all that stuff out of there since we don't have ducks living in the front garden anymore, and just generally was cleaning out there. And then Mr. Smith got the push mower and mowed the whole front garden area, and it looks so much better now. We still need to weed eat, but just mowing alone was just fantastic. Then after that, I pulled out the John Deere from the barn and mowed the backyard over here at last, so the dogs aren't coming out here into a jungle. And then Mr. Smith went and mowed this overgrown area back here. He mowed all around the front, all along our driveway, and just kind of made it look a little more presentable. And then while he was doing that, I cleaned the barn. Oh my goodness, that barn was such a disaster area. It desperately needed it. And so it has been swept out, it's been tidied up, and now you can actually find things in there. So once again, another very exhausting and productive day here on the homestead. And man, I tell you what, these last couple of days, it has felt so good to get out here and just work and sweat and have to take a shower in the evening because you're filthy. I love it. So, man, I live for this. I really do. So let me take you around and show you all the progress. All right, so these first two long beds have all been aerated. Most of the big weeds have been pulled out. There's still some areas where there's a bunch of like baby grass growing and it's just too it's too abundant to pull out by hand, but this will all get covered with newspaper or cardboard and mulched again, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But both of these long beds are aerated. I still have to do the kind of medium-sized one back over there. And then the little bed on the far end, that was the zucchini bed, and so it's got mounds, and I'll clean all that out as well. Some of my perennials are all coming back. I've got a flower right down there, which, if I remember correctly, I would have to go back and look at my records, but I'm pretty sure that those were blanket flowers. Back there you can see some stone crop coming up. And then that reddish plant right there, that was a kind of flower that I planted, but I don't remember what it was. So I'll have to go back and again look at my records in my garden journal. Here, of course, you can see there's comfrey there, and there's comfrey down here coming up. Comfrey is a great plant to grow for a number of reasons. I actually have a video that talks all about propagating it and growing it and everything you basically need to know about comfrey, and I will link that down below so you can find that if you're interested. That plant right there, I'm not exactly sure what it is, so I just decided to leave it and just see. The leaves kind of look like radish leaves, but it's got that great big stalk coming up in the middle, so I figure I'm just going to watch and see what happens there. I've also got a volunteer bean plant right back there. This is some oregano that I planted last year that overwintered. So the next task to do outside is mix up some of my fire ant killer, because here in the south, fire ants will take over everything and they love disturbed soil. So garden beds, raised beds, they just move in and make themselves right at home. And I want you to take a look back there. Look at the size of that fire ant mound. Now this particular bed last year when I put this in was immediately taken over by fire ants. And this entire raised bed was a giant fire ant mound. And when I first mixed up that fire ant killer, it's completely natural and safe, I used this bed as my test case because I was very skeptical as to how well it would actually work. I sprayed this bed. The next morning, there were no fire ants. None. I have a video all about that and a blog post. I will link that down below too if you're interested, because that is something that a lot of people battle, is fire ants. And you don't want to use a bunch of pesticides and nasty things in your garden where you're growing food that your family is going to eat. And so the stuff that I use, totally safe. It's actually really good for your soil and for your plants. And yeah, so this is on the agenda. Also, do you see all this green right here? About 99% of that is pepper plants. No idea what variety, because I had about 5 or 6 varieties of peppers in this bed last year, but they self-seeded. So out here in the flower garden, we've got stuff coming up all over the place. We've got torch flowers, which I absolutely love torch flowers. They are one of the first things to come up in the springtime. So then all of the other things out here are starting to come up. We've got lemon balm down in there. This rosemary bush is just absolutely massive. Rosemary grows so well here. The irises back there are getting bigger and bigger. I have some over there by the car on the other end that I definitely need to thin out. So I have a friend who is wanting some, so once they are done flowering, I'm going to dig some up and send them to her. Down here again, we've got more lemon balm, and right there I see some Echinacea leaves coming up right there. But then all of these dark green leaves that you see absolutely everywhere, that is chocolate mint. And this is a fantastic example of why you need to be very careful where you plant mint of any kind, because it will spread and take over. When I planted this chocolate mint, I planted, I believe it was 2 little bitty chocolate mint plants, and I put them back there in the corner. And as you can see, it has just gone crazy. It's everywhere. Now I don't mind it because it smells lovely, it's pretty and all of that. Plus it is contained within this flower bed, so I don't have to worry about it spreading to the rest of the garden and everywhere else, because it would if it had the opportunity. I just saw my first hummingbird of the season. Oh my goodness, that's exciting. So okay, I bought a brand new hummingbird feeder. I need to mix up some hummingbird feed and hang it out here. I heard that buzz and I looked, and there it was. First hummingbird. Awesome. So today I repotted my fig tree. Check this out. Isn't this gorgeous? Alright, so out here in the raised bed garden, these 2 raised beds that are right down here are the very first raised beds that I ever built on the homestead, and I built them out of wood and they've served their purpose, but this will be the last year that we use these ones because the wood is just disintegrating. Now I had one right down here that was directly inside the gate. It made it difficult to get it here, and I had already planned on taking that one out, and it took no effort at all to just pull it apart. I literally just like tapped it with my heel and it came right apart. So these 2 that are still here, they're okay, but this will be their last season. So you can see in this particular bed, I've got some lettuce that actually came back on its own. I did not plant that. So that is a nice little gift. There's another baby one over there. Oh, and there's another one over there. And those over there are radishes that I planted back in the fall. They didn't grow very well because it got so cold so fast, so I never really expected to see anything. But all of a sudden, I've got some radish plants growing, and they're going to flower because it's so warm. So I'm just going to kind of leave them there, let them flower, maybe collect the seeds, and just appreciate the fact that there's something green in that bed. So in this bed down here, I've got bee balm that is coming back. I'm actually going to thin that out a little bit because it'll kind of spread and take over. And then this right here is actually a cabbage plant that I had cut the head off, but I left the root ball and all of that in there. And I've got all of these little stalks coming up. And yeah, so it's kind of neat seeing that. Then we have the big long bed over here. That is more oregano, very hardy plant. I have several herbs that have just overwintered very well, and I've been able to come out here all winter long and get fresh herbs. The oregano is one of them. I got a cabbage plant right there. At least I think it's a cabbage plant. That was one of my brassicas that got mixed up, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was. Yeah, I think it's a cabbage plant. But it didn't really do much, and I've just left it there all winter. Now this is a cabbage plant that sort of got forgotten, and as you can see, it has gone to flower. And I love the fact that there are blossoms in my garden, and there's really nothing else out here yet, but there's cabbage flowers. Isn't that neat? And then down here on the end, I've got a whole bunch of English thyme, and I've got sage, some beautiful broadleaf sage. Again, fresh herbs that I've been able to enjoy all year. Now this is the skinny bed that I told you was all flowers last year and will be flowers again this year. But here on the end, I transplanted a great big rosemary bush. Now I don't know if it'll make it. It was in that bed that was directly inside the gate, the one that I took apart. I have several rosemary bushes that are growing, so if this does not make it, that's okay. I've still got plenty of rosemary. But so far it looks like it might make it, so we'll just leave it and we'll just see. If it does make it, I'm definitely going to prune this back because I don't want it to get too big, because it's already got some significant size to it. And then here in the center, I planted a whole bunch of bulbs today. I planted some dahlias, I planted some things that I don't really know what they are, but they looked really pretty on the package. So in North Carolina, I went to a grocery store called Lidl, and it is a German grocery store that is moving here to the US. They're starting to open locations, and when I went in there, they had all sorts of bulbs, and I saw these. They were very inexpensive, like maybe $2 or so. But some of these flowers, I'm not really sure a whole lot about them. I'm not familiar with them, but they were pretty, so I bought some. And those are the things that I planted here in this bed. Then I've got catnip and more bee balm. Of course, these all just came back on their own. And then right down here, I have some delphinium that's blossoming. And then the last thing that I want to share with you is that bed right there, the cinder block bed. That is my asparagus bed, and I planted that last year. And when you are planting asparagus, you have to allow the plants, the root system, all of that to really get established for a couple of years before you can even think about harvesting it. So this is its second year. It's been here for a full year now, so this will be its second season. I mean, I know they're kind of spindly, so they might be hard to see, but that one over there is taller than I am, so it's pretty cool seeing all of this come back. Now I'm hoping that next year there will be enough that we can actually start harvesting it. Although I am thinking of adding another bed or two for asparagus, just because I like asparagus and I would love to be able to grow it and enjoy it myself. So I'm seriously thinking of adding a couple more beds. So this particular area, you know, I've always called the other area the big garden, but really if I measured this fence, this area is a much larger fenced area than the no-till garden area. So that's why I'll be calling this one the raised bed garden and that one the no-till garden, because over time, if you see all this space through here, the goal is to gradually build more and more raised beds until we have lots of them out here, just like this right here, because this is my favorite design. And over time, add more and more of them until I have the number that I want. Now we do have a couple of trees in here. There's a pear tree over here in the corner. There's a pear tree right there, and then there's 2 apple trees back there. In the far end, right before you get to the fence, that is a boysenberry patch that we're working to establish. But right back there, in the far corner right there, there's nothing there yet. But that is the perfect spot for bees. At some point we will be adding bees to the homestead, and right there's where they're gonna go. So with that, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this impromptu pre-season garden tour. It has been a very busy couple of days here on the homestead, very productive, and it feels really good to have been working out here in the sun and going to bed exhausted. So I can't wait for more days like this. So thanks for hanging out with me here at the homestead. Again, my name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.
I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire. You set my world on fire. I don't know what I'd do without you. You make me smile. What is it that you